Hello, Kat.
Hello, Yvonne.
So, today's topic, we'll just get straight to it. One that I think is probably one of the most important out of all the podcasts that we do, all the work that we do, early intervention in mental health. Yep. Spotting the signs, spotting the triggers, and understanding how important early intervention is for not just your well-being, but also your partners, your loved ones, your kids, even people that you work with, your colleagues. Early intervention should be at the top of mind when it comes to mental health. If you are a parent, a co-worker, whatever it is, and you are noticing behaviors that are changing in a person, have the conversations, right? And don't stop having the conversations. I find this area, this subject, so important and so key to also removing the stigma around mental health, which as we in our space want to do and we're so passionate and motivated about as well. And mental health can be very tricky, especially when you are, as an expat, you're juggling new cultures and experiences and environments, etc. But one thing that, obviously remains universally true is that if you catch mental health early and the concerns early on, prevention is better than the cure. Do we agree with that, right?
Yeah.
So today I wanted to explore and just give a little bit of an analogy that sometimes we also maybe forget how important it is. And it's just as simple as you jogging or being out and about and spraining your ankle. And if you ice it and look after it, you strap it, put some of that Fast, whatever it is, cream on it, anti-inflammatory, take some painkillers, make sure you don't do any extra exercise. There's a whole gamut of things that you can be doing to manage the pain of your sprained ankle. You'll probably heal with no complication. But if you leave it and, okay, you feel the pain, it's there, it's annoying, and you sleep and you're restless sleep now and you ignore it, the long-term issues are basically probably intensive treatment and a very expensive MRI.
Yeah.
And it is exactly the same with mental health. All right. If you can catch it early, intervene early, whether it's worries, stress, just even mild depression, if you can work on those areas and realize the triggers and understand and do some mindful work, grounding work, you prevent the cracks from deepening.
Yeah.
And prevent it into becoming something so much worse than it was in the beginning. And most importantly, if you're not okay with your mental health, you can't help anyone else. Like you can't be a good partner if you don't have that area under control. You can't be a good mother, father, brother, sister, whatever it is, whatever label hat you have. You cannot be good at it if you don't have this area under control.
Yeah. And I think this is also true. So yes, identifying in a loved one, friend, child, etc., colleague, but it's also true in recognizing it in yourself. If you notice, if like my obstetrician said to me, Katrina, you're going to have to tell us if you're, because no one knows. Sometimes the mask is so good and so effective that we can fool the outside world, okay, but we often can't fool ourselves, So I just want to also sort of normalize the idea of getting support. Like you said, the analogy of going to a doctor if there's a physical injury. There are people in the mental health space, so many different types of specialties and ways of addressing mental health issues. And whatever you find is valuable is what you should pursue. Okay, there's no right way or only one way to work with your mental health. But having a mental health professional support you is invaluable, because you can't, when you have a sounding board, a neutral sounding board to express your concerns and what you're facing at that moment, you have another person who is just going to listen and help you navigate that challenge.
And it's not a weakness.
And it's not a weakness. And the skills and the techniques and the benefits you gain from that experience, you take with you for life.
Absolutely. And I wanted to also just touch on, obviously, our podcasts are not podcasts, so you can self-diagnose yourself, and we're not here to give you the diagnostic criteria of what you could and couldn't be. No. But it's so important in the area of neurodivergence, not just for your child, but also for yourself. If you see that, so going back to your child, that there are some areas that your child may have some neurodivergency, research has shown early intervention is so important. Going out to speech pathologists, to occupational therapists, all these therapists out there are there to help your child be the best that they can be when they move into adolescence. And too often we see that's not been the case. And you have many adults out there now in their 30s, 40s, 50s who have gone, I've got ADHD. And that could have so much easily have been, okay, fair enough, it's such a new...
Different times,
yes. Yeah. But if you yourself feel that, okay, hold on, I'm not really coping with certain bits. And if you go to a mental health professional, they can guide you.
Yeah, about the next steps.
And maybe it's not anxiety. Maybe it's neurodivergency. It's just a different way of thinking. And there's so many things that you can do to then be able to cope better, right? And learn better or understand the world a lot better, especially if you can then have those interventions and know what those interventions are, the coping mechanisms of whatever it is.
I think also, I'm just thinking of schools and like teachers, compared to when we were growing up, they are so much more aware, there is so much more information, there's a lot more potential for early intervention because it's noticed a lot sooner, there's a lot more screening in place. But just to comfort some parents, I know even for myself, like sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it's just a quirk of my child. So it's not, you notice something quick, rush them to the therapist.
No, I'm not saying.
I know.
No.
So
definitely, so I know many stories where authority figures like teachers and whatnot have mentioned.
And this is the next bit. It's like you might have a feeling, but if it's backed up by a teacher pointing in that direction, that's what I was going to say. It's not just, is my child developing normally? If the school is pointing in that direction and have the conversation and go through the process and feel good about the process, that people are there to support you and so on, then this is worthy of considering. Sometimes I think I have a lot of parents and they're like, is this they're noticing something in their child that might be totally developmentally appropriate, just something that needs management at that time. Or, like you're saying, there's other examples that it's interfering with their learning and their experience at school and so on. But there are experts and there are supports in place in schools, and they can refer you to appropriate places to get assessments done and screeners done so that you can be informed about what you want to do.
Yeah, and have the earlier intervention. A child with a learning difficulty recognised in primary is or in high school is better off than having it uncovered. In the later years in high school. It's so important.
I think it also is happening compared to when we were growing up. I mean, that was not easily identified. It was like this idea about differentiation and of a curriculum and so on. Like this idea in the 80s and 90s was non-existent. It's like, this is a curriculum, learn it. Like this is a curriculum, here it is. So things are very different now, and there is a lot more that they can do and modify.
And take advantage of it.
Exactly.
Take advantage of it. Find out. There are so many great interventions now in schools, but not just in schools, but for yourselves as well as adults that you can do and find out more about in the area of not just about like your own mental health, but coping skills that are so simple that give you that, actually, I will do that next time I feel the emotions that.
Exactly.
What does early intervention look like? I think just we leave our listeners with a few steps of, so what is it? How do we do early intervention in mental health? And I think early intervention, like we've had a podcast on this before, but it's about awareness, just noticing changes in yourself, irritability. Yeah. For me, it's always sleep. Yeah. If I can't get to sleep or my sleep is being disturbed, I know that it's because there's something on my mind.
And it's when that continues for more than 2 weeks and it's interrupting someone's quality of life, or if it's with young people, with teenagers and so on, if you've noticed this sort of their behaviour change, their personality change, they're becoming more withdrawn, they're not eating, they're not sleeping, either or, they're distancing themselves from things that they usually like. These are all signs that you want to get curious about within that 2 weeks.
And the signs are the first steps. Yeah. It's just the signs.
And this is conversation with them. You could connect with a school counsellor who can provide a confidential consultation. They can usually guide you to the next steps and so on. And the idea is not to be alarmed within that 2 weeks, but it is to get curious and not assume that it's nothing at the same time. It's a fine line.
So I'm very adamant that you don't muck around with kids' mental health. If you see that they're not sleeping well, they're not eating well, there's school anxiety, different to what more often than not that they were acting before, then definitely have an open conversation about it.
And this is a sort of an added thing just from my experiences of working with young people in specifically. There's a lot of cases where they're open to mental health support. A lot, like the majority, I would say. Yep. And then there's a portion of them that are really resistant to having that external support for various reasons. But I do urge you to not let the child in that moment dictate the course of action.
Yes, and you're the adult.
Yeah, you need to be the adult in that moment. And that's not to put them in an uncomfortable position with a therapist that they're not comfortable with. That's definitely not what we're advocating. But it is to do the work to try and find a good fit for them or get them talking to someone, because really they're not even in yourself. Like when you're not in your best frame of mind and feeling the best in yourself, it's not the time to make big decisions.
No, but what you're doing also for your child and your loved ones as well, and this is not just about children, it's about yourself and your loved ones, is that you're teaching them how to take responsibility for their stress as well, and how to look to, okay, what else? How can I fix this? Because everyone feels it, and some of us just need a little extra help in coping mechanisms. Yeah. So if you're going to seek help, what would you say would be, like, where would your first point of contact be?
If it's an adult, I often say this, like, you could go to your general practitioner and ask if they have any recommendations for good mental health therapists in the area and so on. You can ask a trusted friend, have you gone to anyone for your mental health? Who would you recommend? Something along those lines. When it is an adolescent, a child, I've been a school counsellor for however many years, so a really good place to start would be the school counsellor in the school, and they can definitely provide you with a connection with an appropriate therapist, give you any strategies that you can use at home as a good starting space. If it's with you're concerned about a friend or your partner or a colleague, if it's a colleague, it's a little bit more delicate really, because obviously they may not want other people to know. So I would just do a very gentle check-in. Are you okay? I'm noticing you're not yourself. And see if that opens a conversation. There was a campaign for World Mental Health Day, I think 2 years ago, I think it was 2021. And I loved the campaign because it was saying, are you okay? Always ask twice. Yeah. Because everyone says, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Yeah. No, are you really okay?
And also opening the conversation a little bit further. Are you sure? Because I noticed you were a little irritable when we were having that conversation about this particular topic, and you're not usually like that. Yeah. And I'm just wondering.
Yeah. I'm just checking in with you.
Yeah.
And that's it. And if you ever need anything, I'm here for you. That kind of thing. So I think this is it's a really important topic.
And it has a ripple effect as well with the whole mental health stigma side. Once you open up these conversations, more often than not, if you're having them with your child, you're training your child to have those conversations with their friends and their peers. And that's so important as a skill as well. And again, to remove associate around mental health.
Yeah. But the biggest takeaway is act early.
Yes.
Okay, don't be alarmed, but be curious.
Correct.
And there are so many people to support you, and you would only have to ask and you'll be pointed in the right direction. So don't do it alone.
That's great. Thanks,
Thank
Kat.
you. Thank you, Vaughn.